Zachary Powell yawned as he stepped through the gleaming doors of the Galactic Defense Academy. The massive building sparkled under the light of 3 suns. As the first human ever admitted to this elite school, he should have felt nervous. But after 15 years in the United States Marine Corps and 2 tours in the asteroid conflicts, very little bothered him these days. He adjusted his simple gray uniform and looked around. The Academy's grand hall was filled with beings from over 30 different space-traveling civilizations. Tall, blue-skinned Araxians moved gracefully across the polished floor. Large Tauran delegates walked about on their 4 powerful legs. Even the rare crystalline Vex had sent representatives, their faceted bodies bending light into beautiful patterns. "Recruit Powell?" A thin, high-pitched voice called out. "I am Professor Zilthrak, your main instructor." Zach turned to face a tall, insect-like alien with rainbow-colored eyes and 4 upper limbs holding various data tablets. "Sup," Zach replied, giving a casual 2-finger salute. Professor Zilthrak's antennae moved in what Zach would later learn was extreme confusion. "I must tell you, Deathworlder, that many here do not want you here. Many believe humans are too violent and primitive for advanced space warfare training." Zach shrugged and smiled. "That's fair. But I brought snacks." He pulled a bag of beef jerky from his pocket. The professor's mouth parts clicked in what Zach thought was disapproval. "The Academic Council has placed you in Advanced Strategic Command. Your first test begins tomorrow at sunrise. I suggest you study hard tonight." Zach nodded, putting a piece of jerky in his mouth. "Sounds good. Where do I sleep?" Professor Zilthrak led him through hallways filled with curious alien students who watched Zach with mixtures of fear, interest, and doubt. They passed classrooms, where holograms showed famous space battles, and training rooms where cadets practiced with advanced technology. "This will be your living space," Professor Zilthrak said, stopping at a simple door. "It has been adjusted for your planet's gravity and air needs." "Thanks, Prof," Zach said, stepping inside. The room was basic but comfortable. A bed, desk, and what appeared to be a food machine filled the small space. A window looked out over the Academy grounds, showing the strange pink and purple plants of this alien world. "The dining hall is open for evening meal in 1 hour," Professor Zilthrak said. "Though I should warn you, our food may not suit your tastes." "No worries," Zach replied, patting his bag. "I brought my own supplies. Earth's space agency made sure I had plenty of human-friendly food." After the professor left, Zach sat on his bed and pulled out a small photo. It showed a group of Marines standing in front of a spacecraft. He smiled at the memory, then put the photo on his desk. A soft chime sounded from the communication panel on the wall. Zach pressed a button and a hologram appeared. It showed a human woman in a uniform similar to his own. "Cadet Powell, I'm Lily Morales, Earth's 2nd representative at the Academy. I arrived last week. Just wanted to welcome you and let you know you're not the only human in this place." Zach smiled. "Good to know. I was starting to feel like an exhibit at a zoo. Want to grab dinner? I'm not brave enough to try the alien food yet." "Already tried it," Lily said with a grimace. "Bring your Earth food. I'll meet you in the dining hall in an hour." After unpacking his few belongings, Zach decided to explore the Academy. The hallways were filled with technology beyond anything he had seen on Earth. Walls changed color as he passed, adjusting to what the computer thought would be most comfortable for his species. Floating signs in multiple languages gave directions. In one open area, a group of cadets gathered around a large holographic display. It showed a battle simulation with tiny ships firing at each other. A tall, 4-armed instructor was explaining, something in a language Zach's translator couldn't fully handle. "That's the Omniversal Battle Simulator," a voice said from behind him. Zach turned to see a small, furry being with large eyes. The creature barely came up to Zach's waist. "I'm Cadet Rax," the being said, "from the Panari system. Zach Powell from Earth." "Earth," Rax repeated. "The Death World. They say your planet has terrible storms, dangerous animals, and poisonous plants. Is it true you live with creatures that could kill you?" Zach laughed. "We call them cats, and yes, they probably would kill us if they were bigger." Rax's fur stood on end, which Zach guessed was either fear or excitement. "And you're really going to join Advanced Strategic Command?" That's the hardest program in the academy. Most new cadets start in basic defense or planetary security. Wasn't my choice, Zach explained. The council put me there. To watch you fail, a new voice joined in. A tall, blue-skinned Araxian had approached. His movement was so smooth he seemed to float across the floor. I am Cadet Vextor, the Araxian said, and you should know that Advanced Strategic Command has never had a first-year cadet complete the program, especially not one from a pre-warp civilization like yours. Before Zach could respond, a loud bell sound rang through the halls. Evening meal, Rax explained. Coming, Deathworlder? Right behind you, Zach said, keeping his eye on the Araxian, who moved away with a final cold look. The dining hall was massive, with long tables made from some kind of shimmering material that wasn't quite metal or wood. Various food stations served different types of cuisine, each designed for different alien biologies. Lily waved from a table in the corner. She was a short woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, unlike Zach's, which already looked lived in despite being brand new. How was your first day? She asked as Zach sat down. Interesting. I've been called Deathworlder about 20 times, got a room tour from a giant bug, and already made an enemy. He pulled out a self-heating meal pack labeled spaghetti and meatballs and activated it. Lily smiled. Just wait until classes start. I've been sitting in on interspecies communication. It's fascinating but challenging. Some species communicate through color changes or scent. I start Advanced Strategic Command tomorrow, Zach said, opening his now hot meal. Lily stopped eating. What? That's the hardest program here. They usually only accept senior cadets. So I've heard, Zach replied, twirling pasta around his fork. I think they want to see me fail. Show that humans aren't ready for the big leagues. Earth is counting on us, Lily said quietly. The Planetary Council spent years negotiating for these 2 spots. If we don't succeed, Earth stays defenseless, Zach finished. I know, but I didn't get through 2 asteroid wars by following the rulebook. If they want to see what humans can do, I'll show them. Around them, alien cadets ate strange foods and spoke in dozens of languages. Some used utensils, others absorbed nutrients directly through their skin. A few cast curious glances at the 2 humans eating their Earth food. Professor Zilthrak appeared at their table. Cadet Powell, Cadet Morales, I hope you are settling in well. All good, Prof, Zach said. I must remind you, your first assessment begins at dawn. The Omniversal Battle Simulator is not forgiving of those who are unprepared. With that, the professor walked away, his insect-like legs making a soft clicking sound on the floor. He seems fun, Zach said. Lily smiled. They're not used to humans. We're from a high-gravity, high-oxygen world with extreme temperature variations and constant warfare. To them, we're terrifying. Good, Zach said, finishing his meal. Because tomorrow I plan to show them something really scary, human creativity. The next morning, Zach woke before the alarm sounded. Years of military training had made early rising a habit. He dressed quickly in his uniform, splashed water on his face, and ate a protein bar from his Earth supplies. The halls of the academy were quiet as he made his way to the simulation chamber. Only a few maintenance robots moved about, cleaning floors and checking systems. The 3 suns were just beginning to rise, painting the sky in strange shades of orange and purple. Professor Zilthrak was waiting outside the large metal doors of the simulation chamber. The insect-like teacher's compound eyes gleamed in the early light. You are early, Cadet Powell, the professor noted. Perhaps humans are not as undisciplined as the reports suggest. Don't get too excited, Prof, Zach replied with a smile. I'm just used to early mornings from the Marines. Today's assessment will test your strategic thinking, Professor Zilthrak explained as they entered the chamber. The Omniversal Battle Simulator is the pride of our academy. It can create perfect warfare scenarios across all known dimensions of reality. The room was massive, with a central command chair surrounded by holographic projection equipment. Around, The edges of the room was a viewing area where several alien instructors had already gathered. Zack noticed a few cadets too, including the blue Araxian who had been unfriendly yesterday. Quite an audience for a first-day test, Zack commented. Your presence here is of interest, Professor Zilthrak replied. Many wish to observe the human approach to strategic thinking. A large, blob-like alien in a metal suit floated forward. I am Admiral Kavanth, it said through a translator. I will oversee your assessment today. Zack gave a proper military salute this time. Cadet Powell ready for duty, sir. The Admiral's suit hummed as it moved closer. Today you will face the Crothan invasion scenario. This simulation tests a commander's ability to minimize casualties while orchestrating a dignified surrender. Surrender? Zack asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Admiral Kavanth replied. The Crothan scenario is unwinnable. The attacking force is too powerful. The purpose is to learn how to lose with honor and save as many lives as possible. Zack scratched his chin thoughtfully. Mind if I make myself comfortable? Without waiting. For an answer, he removed his boots and settled into the command chair, stretching his legs. A shocked murmur ran through the watching aliens. Professor Zilthrak's antennae twitched rapidly. Cadet Powell, this is highly irregular. Just getting comfortable, Zack explained. I think better when I'm relaxed. Admiral Kavanth made a bubbling sound that might have been a sigh. Begin the simulation. The room darkened, and suddenly Zack was surrounded by holographic displays showing a peaceful planet with small cities and a minimal defense fleet. Data streamed across smaller screens showing population numbers, available ships, and defense capabilities. Then the Crothan fleet appeared, hundreds of massive warships entering the system. They were enormous, shaped like jagged diamonds with glowing red engines. Standard procedure is to deploy defensive formations, begin civilian evacuation, and prepare for the inevitable defeat, Professor Zilthrak instructed. Zack said, studying the displays. Tell me about these Crothans. What do we know about them? Admiral Kavanth seemed surprised by the question. They are a warrior race from the Outer Rim, highly aggressive, technologically advanced, and known for their conquest of 12 systems. What else? Zack pressed. Culture, interests, weaknesses? This is irrelevant, one of the watching instructors called out. The scenario tests your ability to follow proper surrender protocols. Zack ignored the comment. Admiral, please, any other information could be helpful. Admiral Kavanth paused, then replied. The Crothans value strength and new experiences. They have been spacefaring for 900 years. They consider themselves cultural collectors and often absorb elements of societies they conquer. Perfect, Zack said with a smile. Now we're getting somewhere. Instead of deploying defensive ships, Zack began entering unusual commands into the system. He redirected power from the planetary shields to the communications array and began broadcasting on all frequencies. Cadet Powell, what are you doing? Professor Zilthrak demanded. You're completely ignoring standard defensive protocols. Yep, Zack replied, continuing to work. I'm sending all civilian ships into the nearby nebula for temporary shelter, but not as an evacuation. More like moving the party to a better venue. Party? Admiral Kavanth bubbled in confusion. I'm redirecting agricultural resources to synthesize food and drinks that would be compatible with Crothan biology, Zack explained, and setting up entertainment venues across the main colony. Music, games, cultural exhibitions, the works. The alien instructors watched in horror as Zack's unusual approach unfolded on the screens. The simulated colony was transforming. Defensive positions were being converted into welcome centers, weapon systems powered down, and entertainment venues hastily constructed. This is madness, Professor Zilthrak exclaimed. The Crothans will destroy the colony within minutes of arrival. Maybe, Zack said calmly. But they've been in space for 2 years on this campaign, according to your data. That's a long time without shore leave. And they're cultural collectors, right? So let's give them something worth collecting that doesn't involve bloodshed. On the main screen, the Crothan fleet had slowed its approach. Several smaller ships detached from the main group and moved toward the planet. They're sending advance forces to destroy our defenses, one instructor cried. Or, Zack suggested, They're sending scouts to check out our invitation. The room fell silent as they watched the Crothan scouts enter orbit. The simulation showed the aliens receiving the broadcasts, music, images of food and entertainment, and a formal invitation in their language. To everyone's shock, the scouts didn't open fire. Instead, they held position and communicated with the main fleet. "No way," whispered one of the watching cadets. Over the next simulated hours, more Crothan ships approached. Warriors began landing at the designated welcome areas, where they were greeted with food, music, and cultural demonstrations. The UI simulation showed Crothan warriors initially suspicious but increasingly curious. They sampled the synthesized foods, watched performances of colony dance and music, and even began participating in strength competitions with the braver colonists. By the end of the simulated day, Crothan commanders were meeting with colony leaders, not to discuss surrender terms, but to establish trade routes and cultural exchange programs. When the simulation ended, the room was completely silent. Admiral Kavanth's gelatinous form quivered inside its suit. Professor Zilthrak's antennae hung limp in what appeared to be shock. "In 6,000 years," Admiral Kavanth finally said, "no one has ever completed the Crothan scenario without a single casualty. How did you know this would work?" Zack shrugged and put his boots back on. "I didn't know for sure, but fighting should always be your last option, not your first. Sometimes you just need to chill and see what happens." "But this goes against all strategic doctrine," Professor Zilthrak protested. "On Earth we have a saying," Zack replied. "Make friends first, make peace first, make war last." "The human past?" Professor Zilthrak asked Admiral Kavanth uncertainly. The Admiral's suit hummed as it processed the simulation results. The colony survived intact. The Crothan fleet departed peacefully. There were 0 casualties and a new trade agreement. The Admiral paused. Yes, by any measure, the human past. As Zack left the simulation chamber, the watching cadets parted to let him through. Their expressions ranged from confused to amazed. The Araxian who had been unfriendly yesterday stared at him with wide blue eyes. Lily was waiting in the hallway outside, a grin on her face. "Word travels fast around here. Did you really convert a war game into a dance party?" Zack laughed. "Something like that. Turns out even scary alien warriors appreciate a good time after years in space." "The instructors are losing their minds," Lily said. "Half of them are calling for your expulsion for dangerous creative thinking. The other half want to study your approach." "And what do you think?" Zack asked as they walked toward the dining hall for breakfast. Lily smiled. "I think Earth made the right choice sending you here. We humans have something these aliens need to learn." "What's that?" "That sometimes the best strategy isn't about having the biggest guns," she said. "It's about understanding what everyone really wants." Zack nodded. "Peace, food, and good music, some things are universal." News of Zack's unusual success spread throughout the academy faster than light-speed communications. Within days, cadets from all species were pointing and whispering whenever he walked by. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with respect, and a few with clear disapproval. 3 weeks after the Crothan simulation, Zack sat in the recreation dome, feet propped up on a table as he sketched in a paper notebook, another human oddity in an age of digital screens. Around him, aliens from a dozen worlds relaxed, played games, or studied on their datapads. Lily dropped into the seat across from him. "You've become quite famous, Powell. The instructors have been arguing about you for days." Zack grinned without looking up from his drawing. "Famous or infamous?" "Both," Lily replied. "Some say you're a strategic genius. Others say you're dangerously unpredictable." "Why not both?" Zack said, still sketching. Lily leaned forward to see what he was working on. "What's that?" "My next assignment. Professor Zilthrak wants me to develop a defense strategy for the Cygnus corridor." Lily's eyes widened. "The Cygnus corridor? That's where those draconian pirates have been raiding shipping lanes for decades." "Yep," Zack said, turning his notebook around. Instead of battle formations or weapon systems, he had drawn what looked like a series of connected circles with notes around them. Are those space stations? Lily asked, trying to understand the drawing. Entertainment hubs, Zack corrected. Mixed with trading posts, repair facilities, and cultural centers. The Draconians raid because they're poor and isolated. Their culture values trophies and status symbols, so instead of fighting them, you're going to give them a legitimate way to get what they want, Lily finished, understanding his idea. Zack nodded. Plus, I convinced the Academy to bring in some human music and art. Once they discover Earth culture, they'll have better things to do than raiding. Professor Zilthrak found them an hour later, still discussing Zack's plan. Cadet Powell, the professor said, his insect-like mandibles clicking nervously, I must inform you that the Academic Council has reviewed your performance. Zack sat up straighter, expecting to be punished for not following standard protocols. They have created an entirely new course of study, Professor Zilthrak continued. Alternative strategic paradigms. You will be its first instructor. Zack nearly fell out of his chair. Me? Teach? I don't think. The council insists, Zilthrak interrupted. Your first class begins tomorrow. 27 cadets from 16 species have already signed up. As the professor walked away, Lily laughed at Zack's shocked expression. Congratulations, Professor Powell. Zack ran a hand through his hair. Well, damn. Guess I'd better make some lesson plans. The next day, Zack stood in front of his first class. The room was packed with aliens of all shapes, sizes, and colors. He recognized a few from the dining hall, including Rax, the small furry cadet he had met on his first day. Even the blue Araxian who had been unfriendly was there, sitting in the back with a skeptical expression. Welcome to Alternative Strategic Paradigms, Zack began. I'm Cadet Powell, or I guess Professor Powell now, which is weird because I've never taught anything except basic firearms training. A few cadets made sounds that their translators rendered as laughter. Let's start with a simple idea, Zack continued more confidently. Most conflicts happen because both sides think fighting is the only option. But what if it isn't? What if we look for what each side really wants? For the next hour, Zack explained his approach, using examples from Earth history. He talked about trade agreements that prevented wars, cultural exchanges that built trust, and how understanding an enemy's needs could turn them into allies. The cadets listened with growing interest. Even the skeptical Araxian leaned forward, as Zack described how ancient Earth cultures had sometimes used marriages between rival families to create peace. For your first assignment, Zack said as the class ended, I want you to pick a historical conflict from your world, then figure out how it might have been prevented without weapons. Think outside the normal approach. Be creative. Class dismissed. As the cadets filed out, Professor Zilthrak entered with another instructor, a tall, plant-like being with shimmering green skin. Professor Powell, Zilthrak said, this is Dean Florax. She oversees all curriculum at the Academy. Zack straightened up and offered a respectful nod to the plant being. Dean Florax, nice to meet you. Your teaching methods are unusual, Professor Powell, the dean said in a musical voice, but I observed your class today. The cadets were engaged in a way I have not seen before. Thank you, Zack replied, surprised by the compliment. The Academic Council has another request, Professor Zilthrak said. There is a real situation developing in the Cygnus corridor. The Draconian raiders have increased their attacks. Dean Florax's leaves rustled softly. We would like you to present your entertainment hub concept to the Council tomorrow. If approved, it could be implemented immediately. Zack blinked in surprise. You want to use my idea? For real? The traditional approach of increased patrols and weapons platforms has failed for decades, Dean Florax said. Perhaps it is time for an alternative paradigm. After they left, Zack sat down at his desk, stunned. What had started as a classroom assignment could become real galactic policy. He pulled out his communicator and called Lily. You won't believe what just happened, he told her when her face appeared on the screen. Try me, she replied. This place gets weirder every day. When he explained about presenting to the council. Lily's eyes widened. Zach, this is huge. If your plan works, you could change how the entire galaxy handles conflicts. Or fail spectacularly and get Earth kicked out of the Academy, Zach pointed out. Do you believe in your idea? Lily asked. Zach thought about it. Yeah, I do. Basic. Human psychology applies to most sentient species. Everyone wants respect, security, and a chance to enjoy life. The Draconians are no different. Then stick to your guns, or in this case, your party plans, Lily said with a smile. The next day, Zach presented his concept to the full academic council. 12 senior aliens representing the founding species of the Academy. He showed them detailed plans for entertainment and trading hubs throughout the Cygnus corridor, explained how they would offer the Draconians legitimate ways to gain status and wealth, and described how cultural exchange could build lasting peace. When he finished, there was a long silence. Finally, an elderly Tauran with graying fur spoke. For 300 years we have responded to aggression with greater aggression. The result has been an endless cycle of violence. Perhaps it is time for a different approach. 1. By 1, the council members voted. To Zach's amazement, his plan was approved unanimously. Implementation will begin immediately, Dean Florax announced. And Cadet, forgive me, Professor Powell will oversee the cultural programming. As Zach left the council chamber, he found Lily waiting outside. Well? She asked anxiously. Zach grinned. Looks like we're throwing the biggest party the Cygnus corridor has ever seen, and you're going to help me plan it. The laid-back Deathworlder strikes again, Lily said with a laugh. Who would have thought that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic peace would be teaching aliens how to have fun? Maybe that's been the problem all along, Zach replied as they walked through the Academy halls. Everyone's been too serious about everything. Sometimes you just need to relax and find common ground. Around them, alien cadets and instructors watched with new respect as the two humans passed by, no longer seeing them as primitive Deathworlders, but as bearers of a revolutionary idea, that perhaps the best weapon in the galaxy was understanding. 6 months passed quickly at the Galactic Defense Academy. Zach's unusual class became the most popular elective course, with a waiting list of cadets eager to learn the human approach to conflict resolution. His entertainment hub plan for the Cygnus corridor was fully implemented, and early reports showed a 60% decrease in Draconian raiding activity. On a quiet morning, Zach was preparing materials for his class when all the screens in the academy suddenly flashed red. A high-pitched alarm sounded throughout the building. Emergency alert. All instructors report to the Grand Hall immediately, announced a computerized voice. Zach hurried through the hallways, joining streams of concerned alien teachers heading toward the central meeting area. Lily caught up with him at a junction. Any idea what's happening? She asked as they jogged together. No clue, Zach replied. But whatever it is, it can't be good. The Grand Hall had been transformed into a war room. Holographic displays showed star maps with flashing red indicators in several sectors. Senior Academy officials moved quickly between stations, their voices urgent and worried. Grand Admiral Vostan, a veteran commander with facial tentacles and gray-blue skin, stood at the center of the room. The normally composed officer appeared deeply troubled. Attention, the Admiral called, and the room fell silent. We have received reports of multiple attacks across the mid-rim sectors. The Hive Collective has launched what appears to be a full-scale invasion. Murmurs of shock and fear spread through the gathered instructors. Zach turned to Lily with a questioning look. The Hive Collective, she whispered. Insectoid warriors from the galactic core, highly aggressive and technologically advanced. They've been isolated for centuries. The situation is grave, Admiral Vostan continued. The Hive's quantum tunneling technology has allowed them to bypass our early warning systems. They are already past our outer defenses. The Admiral activated a larger hologram showing the advancing Hive fleets. Their ships were angular and organic-looking, like metallic insects. We must implement Protocol Omega immediately, the Admiral declared. All civilian worlds in the attack path must be evacuated. Defensive fleets will engage in delaying actions while we prepare the core worlds for possible invasion. Zack studied the holographic display carefully, noting the movement patterns of the Hive ships. Something seemed odd about their approach. "Excuse me," he said, raising his hand. The entire war room turned to look at him. "Professor Powell," Admiral Voston acknowledged stiffly. "This is hardly the time for your alternative approaches." "With respect, Admiral," Zack replied, stepping forward. "I think it's exactly the time. Look at the Hive's attack pattern." He moved to the main display and gestured to various points. "They're avoiding direct confrontation with our major fleet elements. They're targeting communication hubs, supply depots, and resource-rich planets. This isn't an invasion. It's a resource grab." Professor Zilthrak, who had become something of an ally to Zack, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The Hive's home system experienced a pulsar event 2 stellar cycles ago. Their resources would be severely depleted." "Exactly," Zack continued. "They're desperate, not aggressive, and desperation calls for a different approach than warfare." Grand Admiral Vostan's facial tentacles writhed with frustration. "What do you propose, Professor Powell?" "We give them what they need, but on our terms," Zack said. What followed was the most unusual emergency session in Galactic Council history. Instead of mobilizing warships, Zack convinced the Council to assemble the largest humanitarian fleet ever seen. Cargo ships loaded with food, medicine, and raw materials were quickly gathered from across friendly systems. "This is madness," one council member protested. "We cannot reward aggression with aid." "It's not a reward," Zack explained, patiently. "It's opening negotiations from a position of strength and compassion. We show them we understand their needs and have the resources to help, but only if they stop the attacks." Dean Florax supported Zack's plan. "Traditional military response has failed against the Hive in the past. Perhaps this approach deserves consideration." After hours of debate, the Council narrowly approved Zack's plan. The humanitarian fleet was dispatched to meet the advancing Hive forces, while defensive ships remained on alert, but out of sight. "Now for the tricky part," Zack told Lily as they monitored the situation from the Academy's command center. "We need to talk to them without getting shot. The Hive don't communicate with outsiders," Lily pointed out. "Everyone knows that." "Everyone's wrong," Zack replied. "They communicate through pheromones and vibration patterns. We've just never bothered to learn their language." Using specialized equipment developed by his students, Zack created a communication system that could mimic Hive vibration patterns. The first message was simple: "We bring supplies. We offer help." When the humanitarian fleet encountered the first Hive ships, tension was high. The supply vessels broadcast Zack's message on repeat, using both standard communication channels and the special vibration system. Hours passed in tense silence. Zack, Lily, and the Academy leadership watched the sensor readings, waiting for any response. "The Hive ships are changing formation," reported a sensor officer. "They're surrounding our fleet." "Hold position," Zack ordered. "Keep broadcasting." Suddenly, a strange pattern of vibrations came through the communication system. The computer translated, "Why help? Why not fight?" Zack smiled. They responded, "Now we're getting somewhere." He carefully composed a reply. "Fighting wastes resources. We have supplies you need. You have knowledge we value. Exchange is better than destruction." There was another long pause. Then an even longer message came through, which the computer struggled to translate. It seemed the Hive were asking about the pulsar event that had damaged their home system, and whether other worlds had experienced similar disasters. "They want to know if we've faced similar challenges," Zack explained to the stunned council members, watching the exchange. "They're not just looking for resources, they're looking for solutions." Over the next several hours, the communication continued. The Hive explained that the pulsar event had destroyed much of their food production capability. Their attacks were desperate attempts to gather enough supplies to prevent mass starvation. Zack worked with Academy scientists to offer farming techniques that could work in their damaged environment, medical assistance for radiation exposure, and immediate food aid to stop the starvation. By the next day, the Hive attacks had completely stopped. Their ships began returning to their territory, except for a small delegation that requested permission to visit the academy to continue discussions. "I can't believe it worked," Professor Zilthrak said, his antennae waving in what Zack now recognized as amazement. "You turned an invasion into a diplomatic mission without firing a single shot." "People are people, even when they're giant space bugs," Zack replied with a smile. "When someone's hungry, angry, or scared, you don't start by threatening them. You start by helping them feel safe and heard." Grand Admiral Voston approached Zack as the emergency session was ending. "Your methods are highly unorthodox, Professor Powell, but they appear to be effective." "Thank you, Admiral. The Council has asked me to inform you that your course, Alternative Strategic Paradigms, will become a required class for all cadets starting next term," the Admiral said. "It seems the galaxy has much to learn from the human approach." As news of the peaceful resolution spread throughout the academy, Zack found himself surrounded by cadets eager to hear how he had turned potential war into cooperation. "The secret," he told them with a wink, "is that most people or aliens actually want the same basic things: security, respect, and occasionally, a good meal. Give them those, and fighting suddenly seems like a lot of unnecessary work." 1 year after the Hive crisis, the Galactic Defense Academy held its annual graduation ceremony. The massive Grand Hall was decorated with the flags and symbols of over 30 spacefaring civilizations. Light from the 3 suns streamed through the high windows, creating colorful patterns on the polished floor. This ceremony was historic for many reasons, but perhaps most notably because it included the first-ever Hive delegates. The insectoid beings stood tall, their dark carapaces gleaming under the ceremonial lights. They moved with precise, careful movements, trying to adapt to the Academy's social customs. Zack, now holding the unprecedented rank of Strategic Innovations Director, watched with pride as his first class of students received their certifications. Among them were cadets from species that had been enemies for generations, now working together thanks to the new approaches they had learned. "They say you've changed everything," Lily said, standing beside him in her formal uniform. She had been promoted to Cultural Exchange Officer after helping implement many of Zack's programs. "The new Strategic Handbook has an entire section called Powell Doctrine." Zack laughed. "Pretty sure most of what I taught was just common sense from Earth. Take care of basic needs, respect cultural differences, and always bring snacks to negotiations." "Don't underestimate what you've accomplished," Lily replied. "The Draconians are now our trading partners. The Hive are sharing their advanced agriculture techniques. 3 border conflicts have been resolved without a single shot fired, Professor." Zilthrak approached them, his once rigid posture now notably more relaxed. The insect-like teacher had become one of Zack's strongest supporters. "Director Powell," Zilthrak said, using Zack's new title, "the Council has approved your proposal for the Intercultural Strategic Initiative. 500 new human recruits will arrive next cycle." "Excellent," Zack nodded. "And the exchange program?" "Also approved. 300 Academy graduates will begin their studies at various Earth institutions next month." Zack smiled at the news. The exchange program had been his latest idea, sending Academy graduates to Earth to study human culture, arts, and social sciences, while bringing more humans to the Academy to continue spreading the alternative approach to conflict resolution. Grandy. Admiral Voston joined their small group, his facial tentacles arranged in the pattern that Zack had learned indicated pleased surprise. "I must admit, Powell," the Admiral said, "when you first arrived I considered you a security risk. Now the entire quadrant studies your methods." "I just applied some basic human wisdom," Zack replied modestly. "Sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight at all." The Admiral's tentacles formed the pattern indicating respectful disagreement. "Not fighting isn't what revolutionized our approach. It was your understanding that different problems require different solutions. The Galactic Council has relied on overwhelming force for millennia, simply because it was the only tool we recognized." Lily smiled. "Whereas humans, we're adaptable," Zack finished. "On Earth we have a saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Humans have just learned to carry a bigger toolbox. As they spoke, a small commotion broke, out near the refreshment area. One of the Hive delegates had accidentally knocked over a drink, splashing it on a Tauran cadet. In the past, such an incident between these species might have led to a diplomatic crisis. Instead, the Hive delegate made a series of apologetic vibrations, while the Tauran responded with a good-natured laugh. Together, they cleaned up the spill and continued their conversation. "See that?" Zach pointed. "A year ago, that would have caused an incident requiring formal apologies from both governments. And now it's just a spilled drink," Lily said with a smile. Dean Florax joined their group, her plant-like skin glowing a healthy green in the sunlight. "Director Powell, the Council wishes to speak with you about your next assignment." "Next? Assignment?" Zach raised an eyebrow. "I thought I was staying at the Academy." "Events have progressed beyond our expectations," the Dean explained. "Word of your success has spread. The Galactic Union has requested your presence at their headquarters. They wish to implement your methods on a larger scale." Zach looked surprised. The Galactic Union was the highest governing body among the spacefaring civilizations responsible for maintaining peace across thousands of worlds. "They want to create a new department," Dean Florax continued. "The Bureau of Alternative Conflict Resolution. They want you to lead it." "Me?" Zach said, genuinely shocked. "But I'm just a former Marine who likes to solve problems without fighting." "Exactly," Grand Admiral Voston said. "That is precisely what the galaxy needs now." Before Zach could respond, a group of cadets approached. They represented a dozen different species, some from worlds that had been bitter enemies for centuries. "Director Powell," said the lead cadet, a young Araxian who had once been skeptical of Zach's methods. "We wanted to thank you before the ceremony ends. Your teachings have changed how we see the universe and each other," added a Hive cadet, making gentle vibrating sounds that the translator rendered as sincere gratitude. Zach felt a lump in his throat. When he had first arrived at the Academy, these species could barely tolerate being in the same room. Now they were friends and colleagues. "You guys did all the hard work," he told them. "I just pointed out some alternatives." After the cadets left, Zach turned back to his colleagues. "I'll consider the Galactic Union's offer, but first I think we should celebrate today's achievements." He pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. Suddenly, the formal reception area filled with the unmistakable beat of Earth music. Startled alien dignitaries turned toward the source of the unexpected sounds. "What is this?" Professor Zilthrak asked, his antennae twitching to the rhythm. "Earth music," Zach replied with a grin. "If we're going to change how the galaxy thinks about conflict, we should also change how they think about celebration." To everyone's surprise, a group of Hive delegates began swaying to the music, their movements becoming more coordinated as they adjusted to the rhythm. Soon representatives from a dozen worlds joined in, creating a multi-species dance party, unlike anything the Academy had ever witnessed. Professor Zilthrak watched in amazement as centuries of formal diplomatic protocol dissolved into joyful cultural exchange. "Perhaps," the professor admitted quietly, "there is something to be said for the human way after all." Lily laughed and pulled Zach toward the improvised dance floor. "Come on, Director. Show them how it's done." As Zach joined the dancing aliens, he reflected on how far things had come. Humanity's entry onto the galactic stage hadn't been marked by conquest or technological superiority, but by something far more powerful, the ability to see beyond conflict, to possibility. In teaching the galaxy to relax and find common ground, humans had found their greatest strength, not as fearsome Deathworlders, but as bridge builders between worlds that had forgotten how to understand each other. And that, Zach thought as he showed a curious Tauran how to do a simple Earth dance, was a far better legacy than any military victory could ever be.